Hi class. This week we're talking about what is science and what is a scientist. So this is the perfect book to read this week. That's what it's called. What is a scientist? It's written by Barbara Lehn. Let's see. What is a scientist? Look at her. She's looking at this glass with liquid and maybe she's drawing a picture? Is that what scientists do? Let's see. What is a scientist? A scientist is a person who asks questions and tries different ways to answer them. Hannah wonders about fruits and vegetables. Are there this many peas in every pea pod? Asks Hannah. So she's holding a pea pod, and inside the pea pod there are peas. And she's asking a question. Does every pea pod have the same number of peas? Well, the only way she could answer it is to test it. She'd have to get a lot of pea pods and open them up and see. A scientist learns from her senses. Definitely, one of the senses a scientist uses is touch. Another sense is sight. Another sense is smell. Definitely smell. And listening. I did an experiment making a xylophone with water and glasses, and that was all about listening too. Cami and Tiara play with a mixture of water and cornstarch. They try to decide if it is liquid or solid. When I squeeze it, it feels like a solid, but it drips like a liquid, observes Tiara. So it's sort of like Play-Doh. When you squeeze it, you can really feel it. It feels pretty solid. Play-Doh does not drip, but this is dripping. So is it both? I don't know. A scientist notices details. Nate examines seeds inside vegetables. There are actually two kinds of seeds in the cucumber. The small ones are clear, observes Nate. So he's learning by looking, by observing. You have to see the differences in things. Notice the small details. What makes things different? What makes them the same? A scientist draws what she sees. That's what's happening on the cover of this book. She's looking at that liquid and drawing. And here she is. Samantha shows how two liquids mix. The red drops beaded up inside the yellow liquid, observes Samantha. Ooh, this is from the experiment I did. I didn't clean my fingers. I did an experiment with food coloring, and I have the food coloring on my fingers. A scientist writes about what happens. Tim records his observation. The checker and pencil landed at the same time, but not the same feather, writes Tim. So he's making observations and writing down what happens. A scientist has to keep a record of what happens to know what is working. A scientist makes comparisons by measuring. Amelia and Corey are measuring weights with the balance scale. Amelia, this side of the balance is higher because it is lighter, demonstrates Corey. So he's looking at this and seeing which part is higher and lower, and why could that be? A scientist must count exactly. Emily and Stuart count how many drops of water they can fit in a penny, and they have to count every drop. We've put on 23 drops of water so far, says Emily, so they're being very careful to count. Look at this. A scientist looks at objects carefully to decide how to sort. Oh, scientists sort objects? Huh. Zoe and her group organize the shoes and boots in different ways. Oh, they must be observing their shoes and their boots and deciding how to organize them. You guys, I think this boot is longer, decides Zoe. You have to really observe when you're organizing by sorting things. A scientist designs experiments to test predictions. Jessie plants seeds at the top of one cup and the bottom of another. I think the seeds that I planted at the top will grow better than the ones at the bottom, predicts Jessie. So she made a prediction. She thinks the ones at the top will grow better than the ones at the bottom. I have to say, I think she's right. If you put the seeds all the way to the bottom, it's really hard for them to pop up out of the soil. You need to plant them higher. So I think she's right in making that prediction. A scientist experiments by trial and error. Nick uses a foam meat tray to make a flying object. I added a blob of clay and some paper clips on the front, and now my meat tray flies farther. So he's done a lot of experiments, seeing what works and seeing what doesn't, and trying to find the one that works the best. A scientist thinks logically. Shivani explains how she learned about the compass directions. When I ride home at the end of the day, the sun is going down over there. So that must be west, figures Shivani. So she thinks logically. Every time she rides home, the sun is always in the same spot. So she begins to learn that that must be west, because it's the same every day. A scientist keeps trying over and over. They never quit. If it doesn't work, they try again. They always try. Charlie and Stuart try to build a tower as tall as possible. Stuart, we finally got more than 10 to stay on, shouts Charlie. They finally got it to grow taller. I bet it fell a lot of times before they got it to work. And they didn't stop. They kept trying. And that's what scientists do. Things don't always work. You just got to keep going. A scientist has fun. It's fun to try new things. It's fun to see what works and what doesn't. It's fun to learn new ways of doing things. Jeff and Teresa experiment with water. I did a water experiment today. You guys are going to get to do one at home. Let's see if we can fill up the tube through these holes. Interesting. So they're trying to see what are different ways that they could fill up this tube with water. A scientist is a person who asks questions, learns from their senses, their eyes, their nose, their taste, their hearing, their touching. They draw, they write, they notice the details in things. They can describe what they see. They measure, they count, they sort, they test predictions. They test out their ideas to see if they're right. They experiment. They do it over and over and over again to see what works best. They think logically. They keep trying. and they have fun. That's what a scientist is. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope you all want to try to be a scientist. Thank you. Bye, guys.